At the wedding, in front of a room full of guests, I threw down the paternity test and shouted at my future father-in-law, "Give me a refund." A month before our wedding, I accidentally discovered that my fiancée, Madeline Brooks, was secretly pregnant with my former college junior, Liam Miller's child when I saw those 4 gut-wrenching words on the medical report, pregnancy. For weeks, it felt like someone had driven a steel rod straight through my chest. So this is how our 6-year relationship ends? All it took was a few sweet words from another man, and everything we'd built crumbled like dust. On the day of the wedding, I cancelled everything without hesitation. Then I packed up and left to join a sealed, high-security research facility in Silicon Valley. Later I heard, when Madeline arrived and saw the empty venue, she lost her mind. Literally searched every corner like a woman gone mad. "Madeline, we've been together for 6 years. We're getting married next month. But now you're carrying Liam's child? What the hell am I to you? Have you ever even thought about how I feel?" My throat was raw from shouting. Bitterness flooded every word. It's a question I'd asked her over and over again ever since she first told me she wanted to have Liam's baby, and every time, she gave me the same damn answer. "How can you be so heartless? Liam has a heart condition. He's dying, Ethan. His only wish is to leave a legacy. He saved my life once. How could I not help him?" Madeline hurled a glass at the floor. The sound shattered the silence like a bomb. Shards of glass sliced across the back of my hand, red lines blooming across my skin. I gave a hollow laugh, feeling my heart sink lower with every beat. Same line. Every time. The first time she said it, I honestly thought she was joking. Who the hell pays back a life debt by getting pregnant? But she kept bringing it up, over and over again, even after I'd clearly said no. I could feel it. If I didn't agree, she wouldn't stop. But how could I just stand by and watch the woman I loved carry another man's child? We'd argued so many times over this that my soul felt worn thin. Finally, one last time, with bloodshot eyes and a voice on the verge of breaking, I asked the woman I had loved for 6 years, "Madeline, are you really going through with this?" She paused when she saw the hopelessness in my eyes, but then quickly steeled herself. "Yes. I'm sure." Maybe it was my calmness that made her nervous, because, for the first time in weeks, she softened her tone. "Ethan, I'm only giving Liam a baby. I'm still marrying you. You know I can't just let my lifesaver die with regret. It's artificial insemination, nothing physical will happen. I'll still be your wife, fully and completely." Every word she thought was soothing stabbed into me like a knife. Like she was granting me some kind of pity, marrying me out of charity. Did she even love me at all? "Madeline, you'd..." Before I could finish, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and turned to step out onto the balcony. Without a word I watched her leave, the bitterness surging again. We'd grown up together, from preschool to college, always in the same schools. I followed in her footsteps for most of my life. Even though she was never particularly warm to me, I didn't mind. I thought if I kept loving her, she'd come around. Then one night after our high school graduation party, as we were walking home, she suddenly turned around and asked, "Wanna be my boyfriend?" In that moment, everything around me fell silent. Just her voice, echoing. The next second, she added, "Just want to know what it feels like. Not that I actually like you. It's fine if you don't want to." But how could I say no? This was the chance I'd waited for all my life. I said yes. I told myself, she may not love me yet, but she will. In time. She'll come to see how much I care. 6 years went by. She never truly opened up to me. We'd been friends since childhood, lovers for 6 years. But I'd never once touched her phone. She never took calls in front of me. I remember one night, she had stomach cramps and curled up in bed while her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Worried it might wake her, I reached over to put it on silent. She opened her eyes instantly, yanked the phone away and snapped, "Why are you touching my phone?" No matter how I explained, she wouldn't listen. I spent that night sitting alone on the living room floor. I told myself she just needed more space. That it wasn't about me, but about her sense of independence. That eventually, I'd earn her trust. But nothing changed. Not one damn thing. And now she was carrying another man's baby and didn't even ask for my permission. Madeline walked in, eyes bright with excitement, grabbing her coat as she headed toward the door. "I've got something to take care of. You think about this a bit more, okay? Don't be so unreasonable." I listened to the sound of her footsteps fading away, my heart a tangled mess. Who else could she be in such a hurry to meet, if not Liam? Sure enough, It didn't take long for Liam to send me a photo. When I zoomed in and saw what it was, my knees nearly gave out. A pregnancy report. Madeline's name was printed in bold at the top. Gestational age, 4 weeks, which meant she had already done the insemination a month ago. She was already pregnant with Liam's child. She never planned on asking me. The decision had been made long ago, so what the hell was the past month of back and forth about? To ease her own guilt. To give herself the illusion of moral high ground, all strength left me. I collapsed onto the couch, vision going black at the edges. It felt like someone was squeezing my heart in a vice, making it impossible to breathe, and no wonder she'd looked so radiant earlier. That phone call, it was the confirmation. She was pregnant. She probably went straight to the hospital to celebrate with Liam. I shut my eyes, pain ripping through every fiber of me. I couldn't believe the woman I'd loved for 2 decades, my childhood friend, my high school sweetheart, could do something like this. We had just gotten engaged last month. I'd already booked the venue, ordered the tux, made plans for the honeymoon. I'd dreamed of walking down the aisle with her, starting our life together, growing old side by side. But now, all those dreams were slipping through my fingers like sand, and my phone buzzed on the coffee table, snapping me out of the fog. I answered without checking the ID. A familiar voice came through, crisp and clear. "Ethan, I know you're getting married, but I had to ask one last time, will you come join our lab?" It was Dr. Natalie Reed, my senior from grad school. "You were always Professor Holloway's most promising student. He really wants you on this project. Since you're starting a family, the professor said you could alternate 1 month in, 2 weeks off. That way you'll still have time for your wife." I'd known about the new research lab since half a year ago. Professor Holloway even called me personally to recruit me, but once you're in, the facility goes dark, no contact with the outside world until the phase ends. Could be 2 months. Could be 2 years. I turned it down. I couldn't bear to be separated from Madeline, but now, that damn pregnancy report floated in front of my eyes again. She had never cared about our relationship. Never cared about our wedding. Why should I? My grip tightened around the phone. "I'll do it," I said. "No breaks needed. I'll follow the regular experiment schedule." Natalie sounded thrilled. "That's amazing. The professor's going to be so happy. When are you thinking of starting?" 2 weeks after the wedding. Gives you time for a honeymoon." I looked at the calendar on the table. "No need," I said softly. "I'll start the day of the wedding." The 10th of this month was circled in bold red marker. I had marked it as a constant reminder, our big day. Something to look forward to. Now it was my countdown to walking away. 15 days left. 15 days until Madeline Brooks and I would become strangers. That night, she didn't come home. I wasn't worried. Liam had already posted on Instagram that they'd left the hospital and gone straight to his house to tell his family the good news. The photo showed his mother holding Madeline's hand affectionately, her other hand placed gently on her own stomach. She was beaming. 6 years together, and Madeline had only visited my parents once, right after she agreed to marry me. Even though our parents lived only 20 minutes apart, she always had some excuse. She said she didn't like being around older people. Said it made her feel like she had to put on a mask. That one time she did go, she was stiff and polite. Nothing like the glowing, relaxed woman in that photo. I turned off my phone. The next day, I met with a few close friends and told them the wedding was off. Madeline had said she didn't like weddings, too showy, too performative. Still, I convinced her to have a simple one, just a few close friends. She reluctantly agreed. Everyone knew how much I adored her, so when they heard I'd called it off, they were stunned. "You've loved her forever, man. And now you're just letting her go." Did I want to let go? Of course not. I'd chased her for over a decade. Finally convinced her to be with me. Finally got her to say yes. Letting go was the hardest thing I've ever done, but deep down, I knew our love wasn't equal. I was always chasing. She never once turned around. I didn't mind. I believed that if I could wait 15 years to make her my fiancé, I could wait another 15 for her to love me back. But everything changed when Liam Miller showed up. Then I realized Madeline wasn't cold to everyone. She smiled at Liam, laughed with him, smiles she never gave me. At first, I told myself it was just gratitude. He saved her life, after all. She was just being kind. But then the surgery failed. And she decided to give him a child. She lied to my face, pretended to ask for my consent, all while she was already pregnant. That was when I knew that it was over. No amount of history could save us now. I didn't tell my friends the truth. Just said I'd be off-grid in a research lab for a while. To make up for the cancelled wedding, I stayed out with them until late. Got drunk for the first time in years. When I got home, Madeline had just arrived too. She wrinkled her nose at the smell of booze and smoke, stepping back with a look of disgust. God, Ethan, get away from me. That smell's making me sick. I followed her gaze to her hand, resting instinctively over her stomach. She wasn't hiding it anymore. Fine. If she didn't bring it up, I wouldn't either. I didn't say a word. Just headed for the shower. When I came out, she was texting, smiling to herself. I walked past her, heading for the bedroom, but she called out to me, I need to talk to you. I froze. The last time she said those words, she told me she was going to have Liam's baby. We'd argued for a month straight after that. Now she was already pregnant. What else could she possibly want? We need to change the wedding date. I looked at the calendar. The 10th was marked in big red letters. Wedding. I had no idea why she wanted to postpone it. But I wasn't planning on going through with it anyway. She was saving me the trouble. Fine, I said. I'll call the venue and cancel. She blinked, clearly surprised by how quickly I agreed. She thought I'd resist. Thought I'd beg for a reason. After all, I'd spent weeks planning every detail, scouting venues, paying extra for the perfect space, making sure everything would be flawless. But I just nodded and walked away. Madeline stared at me with a puzzled look. No need to cancel. Liam said, he knows he'll never get married. He just wants to pretend. To feel like he had that experience. He wants me to have the ceremony with him. We'll do hours later. She said it like she was talking about what to order for lunch, like when she first mentioned the insemination. She wasn't asking. She was informing me. I lowered my gaze, hiding the smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. She still didn't know. I'd be gone in 10 days, gone for good. I whispered a soft okay, and went to bed. She could marry whoever she wanted. It had nothing to do with me anymore. Madeline watched my back as I walked away, an uneasy feeling rising in her chest. I was too calm. Too detached. She had rehearsed dozens of arguments, prepared for resistance, but I gave her none. Right then, her phone rang. It was Liam. She forgot all about me, walked out to the balcony, and answered with a sweet smile. When I woke up the next morning, Madeline was getting ready to head out. She slipped on her shoes and tossed a quick reminder over her shoulder. Liam and I are heading out for a few days to take our wedding photos. He's always wanted to see Lake Tahoe. I'm going with him. As for our wedding, just keep it simple, okay? I won't be around to help with the rehearsals or decorations. You can decide everything. No need to ask me. I swallowed a bite of toast and said, sure. Keep it simple. There would be no wedding photos. No guests. No officiant, and no groom. Madeline glanced over, surprised I didn't protest. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, we should go to Europe for our honeymoon after the ceremony. You've always wanted to visit. Once upon a time, if she'd said that, I would have been over the moon. I would have pulled out maps, made itineraries, booked tickets right away. But now, I just kept chewing my toast. I didn't say a word. She stared at me for a moment, puzzled, maybe a little uneasy. Then glanced at the clock and rushed out the door. Let's talk when I get back. I picked up the calendar from the table and took a thick black marker. I drew a giant X over the words wedding photos. 6 days left. After breakfast, I started clearing out the apartment. There was no point leaving anything behind. A dusty photo album with less than 5 pictures. A projector we never used. Matching pajamas that had never been worn. Every single object in the apartment had been chosen by me. I spent years turning this empty place into a warm home, but looking closely now, I realized Madeline had never really used any of it. She said even though we were dating, she was still her own person. She didn't like couples items. Said it made her feel tied down. So once I was gone, all this would probably just annoy her. Might as well get rid of everything now, erase the evidence. Delete the memories. The entire week, she didn't come home once, but I still knew exactly what she was doing because Liam Miller posted everything, photos of them soaking in hot springs. Walking along the beach. Watching the sunrise together. Scrolling through his feed, I saw a side of Madeline I'd never seen before. Turns out she could be affectionate. Warm. Playful. Just never with me. I didn't dwell on the details. Just glanced, scrolled past, and got back to packing. The apartment took days to clear out. I even found time to stop by my parents' place. I told them I was leaving for the lab and would be out of touch for a while, and why Dad looked shocked. But, you and Madeline are getting married soon. Won't this mean a long-distance marriage? My mom gently took my hand, concern in her eyes. Think this through, Ethan. You and Madeline have come so far. If you disappear into that lab, she might not wait. What about the wedding? They didn't know yet. Didn't know I was the one calling it off before proposing. They had hesitated, gently telling me they weren't sure Madeline truly cared about me the way I did for her. That maybe I should wait, reconsider, but I'd believed in her. Believed in us. Now I knew better. I didn't tell them about the pregnancy. I didn't want to break their hearts. I just said I wanted to return to research. To contribute something meaningful. My father sighed and patted my shoulder. As long as you won't regret it. I nodded. When I got home, I called up Ryan, my best friend, to help me haul the boxes down, dozens of them. Stacked high in the living room. Once we finished, the apartment felt hollow. Like a hotel room. Ryan looked around, a bit stunned. Holy shit, you're serious, he muttered. I thought you were joking when you said the wedding was off. I mean, dude, I watched you follow Madeline around like a lovesick puppy for years. What the hell happened? He tossed me a beer. Cracked open one for himself. I hesitated. Then, maybe because I was finally about to leave, I told him everything, from the moment Madeline said she'd have Liam's child, to the pregnancy test, to her secretly doing it behind my back. Ryan listened in disbelief, then exploded. Dude, what the actual fuck? After all the shit you've done for her, and she pulls this. She got knocked up by another guy and still wanted to marry you like nothing happened? I gave a bitter smile. She said Liam was her savior. That she owed him. Ryan scoffed, shaking his head. You saved her life too, Ethan. Don't you remember? That night, I didn't respond. Maybe she just didn't love me, and maybe that was enough of a reason. But it's okay. I was finally leaving. 5 days before the 10th, I submitted my resignation at the university years ago. I turned down an opportunity to stay in my mentor's research lab, just so I could be with Madeline and take a local teaching job. My coworkers were shocked. Why the sudden resignation, Professor Carter? Didn't you just pass around wedding candy last week? You leaving to be a full-time house husband? Your fiancé's one lucky woman. I chuckled, arms full of files and books. Nope. Wedding's off. When I got home, I ran into Madeline and Liam for the first time in a week. She looked startled when she saw me carrying boxes. What are you doing with all that stuff? I gave a casual answer. Just some junk I didn't need at the office. Bringing it home. She nodded, glanced around the apartment, then frowned. It's only been a week, but it feels like this place is a lot emptier. I carried the boxes into the bedroom without reacting. I just cleared out some unnecessary clutter. She opened her mouth, maybe to say something more, but Liam cut in first. Ethan, thank you. Really. Madeline's been amazing these past few days, traveling with me, taking the wedding photos. It meant so much. I appreciate you letting her help fulfill my dream. Dinner's on me tonight. It's the least I can do. I hope I'm not imposing. He met my gaze, his eyes full of smug challenge. He was testing me, seeing how far he could push, because from the moment I saw the pregnancy report until now I hadn't said a word. No accusations. No fights, but I had no interest in games. In 5 days, I'd be gone. Out of their lives. All I cared about now was making a clean exit. When I didn't reply, Liam turned to Madeline, pretending to be unsure. Madeline, did I upset Ethan? I know you two are still getting married and all. Madeline's brows drew together. She turned on me, sharp and irritated. Ethan, seriously? Liam's just trying to be nice and thank us. Can you not make such a big deal about it? It's one dinner. He's not poisoning your food. You're being ridiculously petty. I'm asking you nicely, come with us. I hadn't even said a word, and I was already the villain. In the end, she dragged me along. The restaurant, the server handed us menus. I had barely opened mine when Madeline spoke up. Nothing too greasy or spicy, she told the waiter. And absolutely no cilantro. When the food arrived, she carefully picked out dishes and began piling them into Liam's bowl like it was second nature. Then she pushed a plate of shrimp toward me. Liam can't have seafood right now. I ordered this for you. I stared at the shrimp, appetite vanishing instantly. I set my chopsticks down. I'm allergic to shellfish. The words dropped like stones on the table. 6 years together, and she didn't even know I was allergic to seafood. But she could remember every single one of Liam's dietary restrictions, even details as small as his hatred for cilantro. For a split second, Madeline froze, clearly confused. Then she glanced up at me, her eyes flickering with something like guilt. She quickly ordered a few more dishes, but I didn't touch any of them. I spent the rest of the meal drinking only water. When we stepped outside after dinner, my phone buzzed. It was Dr. Natalie Reed again. Ethan, just checking, are you still good to follow the regular experimental schedule? The first project is classified, so you might be cut off from the outside world for a year or two. My gaze drifted to Madeline and Liam walking a few steps ahead of me. They were side by side. She instinctively placed a hand over her stomach as she stepped down the curb. My voice came out steady. Cold, yes. I'm sure. Natalie sighed in relief. Good. The professor was worried you wouldn't want to leave your wife. I looked away, turned in the opposite direction, and said flatly, the wedding's cancelled. I'm ready to go. Just then, a voice called out from behind me, who's leaving? Madeline had just finished saying goodbye to Liam and caught the last part of the call. I realized she hadn't heard the beginning of my sentence, so I casually replied, a friend of mine. She nodded, satisfied with that answer. On the fourth day before the scheduled wedding, Madeline came home holding a framed photo and chatting away on a video call with Liam. Look, Liam, our wedding photos came out so well. Even the staff at the studio said we looked perfect. She was beaming as she held the frame up for the camera. I walked out of the bedroom just in time to see it. Madeline looked momentarily flustered when she saw me and quickly lowered the frame. I gave the photo a brief glance and said sincerely, they look nice. She froze. It was the first time in weeks I'd spoken to her with any kind of emotion. Even when she'd left town with Liam, I hadn't texted or called once. She wasn't used to the silence. Liam kept talking on the other end of the call, but Madeline was only half listening now, her eyes lingering on me. She shook her head quickly, pretending everything was fine. The second to last day, I remembered I needed to prepare personal supplies before entering the lab, especially medicine, so I went to the hospital to get a prescription. I hadn't expected to run into Madeline and Liam coming out of the OBGYN department. Madeline looked startled to see me. She opened her mouth, but Liam beat her to it. He walked right up to me, dropped to his knees, and said with theatrical desperation, Ethan, I know you still haven't forgiven us. I get it. But I don't have much time left. The doctors say I might not make it to next year. I want to see my child born. That's all. I swear, after the baby is born, I'll take him and leave. I won't interfere with your life with Madeline. I didn't get a chance to respond before Madeline knelt beside him, gently pulling him up. Liam, don't do this. Your heart's too fragile. Then she turned to me. Now that you know, I won't keep it from you anymore. Don't worry, it's early in the pregnancy. It won't affect our wedding. If this had been me a month ago, I would have lost it. I would have raged, cried, blamed myself, wondered what I'd done wrong. Why I wasn't enough, but not anymore now. I understood the truth. It wasn't about what I lacked. It was about what she never gave me. Love. That day at the hospital, when I'd first seen the pregnancy report, when she'd run off to celebrate with Liam, she never cared about me. Not really. So there was no point in playing the fool anymore. I looked at both of them calmly and said, got it. I turned to leave with my prescription in hand. There were still things to pack. They weren't expecting that. Especially Madeline. She stared at my back as I walked away. After a month of arguments, fights, tears, she thought finding out about the pregnancy would wreck me, but I was quiet. Calm, too calm. She couldn't explain why, but the look on my face made her chest tighten. Before I could reach the stairs, Liam caught up and grabbed my sleeve. Madeline was still a few steps behind, so he dropped the act. Tell me, Ethan, how does it feel to raise another man's kid? You're still gonna stand up there and marry her with my baby in her belly? You've got some serious self-control. I didn't want to engage. I jerked my arm free and tried to leave, but Liam leaned too far in the process, and he stumbled, almost falling down the stairs. Out of instinct, I grabbed him just in time. But before I could let go, a voice rang out behind me, sharp and angry. What the hell are you doing? Madeline had arrived. She rushed over, only to find Liam clutching his chest and looking thoroughly wronged. Madeline, I was just trying to thank Ethan. But she didn't even let me explain. Ethan Carter, I can't believe you'd stoop this low. Apologize to Liam. Right now. I laughed, actually laughed. You want me to apologize? Check the security footage. Then you'll see who should be apologizing to who. But she didn't even consider it. Liam's sick, Ethan. You think he'd endanger himself just to trick you? Liam's expression faltered for a second. The panic in his eyes was brief but telling. Forget it, Madeline, he said softly. It's fine. I understand if Ethan's still upset. He has every right. Madeline wouldn't budge. No. He owes you an apology. I didn't budge either. I wasn't going to say sorry for something I didn't do. Liam, sensing that things were escalating, clutched his chest again and moaned, I'm not feeling well. Madeline panicked, her anger vanishing in a heartbeat. She supported him under the arms and helped him toward the ER. I watched them walk away, a hollow ache settling in my chest. 20 years of friendship. 6 years of being together, and not an ounce of trust. Good thing I'd woken up in time. Tomorrow would be the last day. Madeline never came home that night. Probably still playing nurse to her precious patient. I shipped my luggage to the lab, everything but a backpack. Later that evening, she finally returned. Still angry. Still clinging to the narrative in her head. Liam's still in the hospital, and you're hung up on one little accident. Can't you just be the bigger person for once? Bigger person. I thought I'd been more than generous. I gave up my tux. Gave up my wedding, let her have the man she loved. Let her carry his child. Hell, I was even leaving town to make space for them. She caught a glimpse of the calendar on the wall, saw the red circle around the 10th, and softened a bit. Whatever. Tomorrow's the big day. Let's not fight. After the ceremony, you'll go apologize to Liam. Then we can leave for our honeymoon. I said nothing. If she had even an ounce of attention to spare, she would have noticed the apartment had no wedding decorations. No gown. No suit. Nothing. I opened my mouth to tell her the truth, but her phone rang. Liam again. She picked up immediately, panic flashing across her face. I'm coming. I'll be right there. She grabbed her bag and rushed out the door, tossing over her shoulder, wait for me tomorrow. The door slammed shut. I sat alone in the silence and finally let the words escape. We're done, Madeline. The wedding is cancelled. Only the clock on the wall responded, ticking steadily toward midnight. I sat in the living room all night, watched the sky turn from black to pale blue at 6 a.m. My phone buzzed. My flight was in 3 hours. I stood up, went to the bedroom, and picked up my backpack. Then I returned to the calendar. The 10th was still circled in red. I drew a thick black X through it. Then I wrote beneath it, we're done, Madeline. I left the calendar propped up where she'd see it. Then I walked out the door and hailed a cab to the airport. Goodbye, Madeline. On the other side of town, Madeline didn't leave the hospital until Liam's condition had stabilized. She stepped out into the morning sun and immediately texted Ethan. Are you at the venue yet? I'm on my way. Don't forget to bring the rings. She waited for a reply. None came. Madeline frowned and opened their chat window, ready to follow up, but she froze when she scrolled up. The last message Ethan had sent her was over 2 weeks ago. She looked back through their conversation. Message after message, all from her. A quick what do you want for dinner? From him. A simple do you prefer orchids or roses for the centerpiece? Another asking about their honeymoon plans, and her replies. Whatever. Up to you. You decide. No warmth. No curiosity. Just indifference. Still, Ethan had kept texting day after day, but then, suddenly, 2 weeks ago, silence. Her heart twisted in her chest. Why hadn't she noticed? Was he really that busy? Then she remembered that day, exactly 15 days ago, when she had rushed out to the hospital after Liam sent her the pregnancy report. She'd just begun to explain her plans to Ethan. But when the call came through, confirming the success of the insemination, she had dropped everything and left. And Ethan's face, God, she remembered it now. The shock. The disbelief. The pain. In the 20 years they'd known each other, she had never seen him look like that. It was the only time he'd ever truly said no to her, yet even then, he hadn't shouted or begged. He had just faded after that. She couldn't remember the last real conversation they'd had. Her heart began to race. She tried to calm herself. He's just stressed about the wedding. That's all. She tapped the driver's shoulder. Please drive faster. Still no reply from Ethan. She gripped her phone tighter. By the time she arrived at the venue, her friends and family were already there. Her mother rushed over, worry etched into her face. Madeline, why aren't you dressed? Where's your wedding gown? And where's Ethan? Friends gathered around, all talking at once. Where's the groom? Did you two come separately? Did he go ahead to the ceremony? Madeline forced a smile. He's probably just making sure everything's perfect. You know Ethan. But her voice trembled. She turned toward the hotel concierge and asked, Excuse me, which hall did Ethan Carter book for today's ceremony? The staffer flipped through a list and smiled. Let me see. Ah yes, Mr. Carter booked Hall 3. Madeline exhaled in relief, but then the staffer's smile faltered. Although, I should note that Mr. Carter called over 2 weeks ago to cancel the booking. He said the wedding was off. The words echoed in her ears like a gunshot. Madeline's legs nearly gave out. The wedding was cancelled. Her mother grabbed her arm, her voice rising. What's going on, Madeline? Didn't you two agree on the date months ago? And now he's not even answering his phone. What happened? Madeline opened her mouth, but no words came out because she hadn't known either. The staffer had just confirmed it. Ethan cancelled the wedding over 2 weeks ago, right around the time she had gotten that pregnancy confirmation, right around the time everything had started to change. Her mother's voice was shaking now. Call him. Now. Madeline fumbled with her phone, hit the call button, and held it to her ear. The line didn't even ring, just a cold, automated message. The number you are trying to reach is unavailable. Her fingers went numb. She tried again, same message. She raced home, heart pounding. Maybe he'd just gone to get something. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. Silence. Ethan wasn't there, and then she noticed it. The photo frame that used to sit on the table, gone, the one with their only picture together, the closet, half emptied, no razor in the bathroom. No books on the shelf. No Ethan. Her eyes swept over the apartment. It had been subtle, but she saw it now. When she'd come home after the trip with Liam, she had thought something felt different, lighter, emptier, but Ethan had said he was just clearing out clutter. Liar. He hadn't been clearing clutter. He had been erasing himself. Tears welled up in her eyes as she stumbled toward the calendar. There, in thick black ink, was a message written just under the circled 10th. We're done, Madeline. The marker strokes were bold. Angry. Final. She stared at those words until they blurred. The reality hit her all at once. He left. He really left. But why? Last night, everything still seemed fine. Didn't it? Her phone kept buzzing, calls from her mother, from friends, all asking where Ethan was, but she didn't pick up. She couldn't. She sat on the couch, numb, scrolling through her messages with Ethan again, reading the words she'd ignored. Remembering the face she hadn't looked at closely enough. Suddenly, it all came crashing down. The exact day he cancelled the wedding was the day she had received the pregnancy confirmation. She'd been too excited, too swept up in her plan. She hadn't seen the devastation on his face. She hadn't heard the door quietly closing behind him. Now, she knew Ethan had made up his mind 15 days ago. He just needed time to erase the last traces of their past, and he had done it, completely gone without a sound. She tried calling again. Nothing. Frantic now, she raced out of the apartment and headed to Ryan's house. Maybe Ethan had told his best friend something. When Ryan opened the door, he wasn't surprised to see Madeline standing there, breathless, eyes wide with panic. He didn't say anything at first. Just leaned against the doorframe with a sardonic smile curling on his lips. Well, if it isn't the famous bride-to-be, he said with a drawl. Or should I say, ex? Madeline's heart dropped. Her voice came out shaky. You knew, didn't you? You knew he was gone. Ryan didn't answer that. Instead, he crossed his arms and said, What do you want, Madeline? I need to know where he went. Ryan scoffed. Now you care. She flinched. I know I messed up. But I need to talk to him. I need to explain. Ryan's face hardened. Explain what? That you were just doing the right thing. That you only got pregnant with another man's child as a form of charity. That you were planning to marry Ethan anyway and keep this little arrangement under wraps. I was going to tell him. He already knew. Ryan snapped. He found out before you even said a word. You were going to keep lying until the wedding day, weren't you? Madeline's lips trembled, her throat dry. Please, just tell me where he is. Ryan narrowed his eyes. Why should I? So you can ruin him a little more. I need to make it right. He laughed coldly. You think this is a romantic comedy? You show up at the last minute and everything's magically forgiven? Madeline shook her head. You don't understand. Liam is. He's my savior. I owed him. Ryan stepped forward, eyes burning. Funny. Because Ethan saved your life too. Her breath caught. What? You seriously don't remember? Madeline blinked. What are you talking about? Ryan stared at her like she was a stranger. 6 years ago. New Year's Eve. You were attacked near campus. Some guy dragged you into an alley. Her legs went weak that night. I remember someone pulled him off me, but I passed out. Yeah. That someone was Ethan. Madeline's heart stopped. No, it was Liam. I woke up in the hospital and he was there. Ryan shook his head, disgusted. He just happened to be visiting a friend in the ER. You saw him first when you woke up, so you assumed. Ethan didn't say anything because he didn't want to reopen your trauma. But he almost died that night, Madeline. He was stabbed trying to save you. He pulled out his phone and shoved it toward her. There, in a photo album, was a picture of Ethan, bandaged, pale, tubes running from his arm. The timestamp read, January 1st, 1:32 am. Madeline stared at the image, frozen, everything tilted sideways. All this time, she'd believed Liam was her savior. She'd based every choice, every excuse, every sin on a lie, and Ethan, he had been there all along. Silent. Bleeding you. You're lying, she whispered. Ryan's voice was quiet now. I wish I was. Madeline stumbled backward, shaking her head. She didn't even remember how she got out of Ryan's house. Her mind was a fog of shame, disbelief, and unbearable grief. She hailed a cab. There was only one thing she needed to do: find out the truth. From Liam, she burst into his hospital room, ignoring the nurse's protest. Liam looked up from his phone, startled. Madeline? She walked toward him, hands clenched. I need you to tell me the truth, she said. Did you really save me that night 6 years ago? Liam froze, his eyes darted, calculating. Of course I did. You saw me there. Don't lie to me, she shouted, tears brimming. Just answer me. Was it you? Liam opened his mouth, but no words came. That silence was all she needed. The last thread snapped. Madeline closed her eyes and whispered, it was Ethan, wasn't it? Liam finally slumped back against the pillows. Yes. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he muttered. I just wanted to be near you. I thought maybe, if I pretended. Madeline didn't wait to hear more. She turned and walked out of the room. Her hands trembled as they pressed against her stomach. This baby, it should never have existed. By the end of the day, she was in a different hospital, sitting with a doctor, signing a consent form. She had the pregnancy terminated that same afternoon. The next day, when the Miller family found out, they stormed into the hospital in a rage. Liam's mother screamed that the doctors had killed her grandchild, demanding retribution, but the paperwork was clear, and when they refused to leave, the hospital called security and had them escorted out. Madeline didn't look back. She didn't care what they thought. Not anymore. All she wanted was to find Ethan. She tried Ryan again, begged him outside his apartment every day. But he wouldn't answer until finally, after nearly a week, he opened the door and said one sentence. He left for the lab. He's gone. Where? I'm not telling you. Please, Ryan, I'm not letting you hurt him again. And then he shut the door. But Madeline wasn't giving up. She reached out to every mutual contact she could think of. Former classmates, lab colleagues, even the professor Ethan used to work under. Finally, one of them mentioned that Ethan's former mentor had opened a new research lab in Silicon Valley. There was no confirmation that Ethan had gone there, but she knew she could feel it. She booked the next flight out. Madeline landed in San Jose just after sunset. Armed with nothing but an address and sheer desperation, she took a cab straight to the lab's location on the edge of a quiet tech campus tucked into the hills. The building was sleek and modern, glass and steel gleaming beneath the California twilight. A high-security gate blocked the entrance, complete with keypad access and a scanning camera. She wasn't even sure they'd let her in. Just as she was debating whether to ring the intercom, a young man in a lab coat pushed open the side gate to carry in a crate of supplies. Madeline ran over. Excuse me, she said breathlessly. I'm looking for someone. Ethan Carter. Could you help me? The guy looked startled. Who are you? I'm his fiancé. The lie slid out of her mouth before she could think. But the truth? That was far more complicated. The researcher hesitated for a moment, then slowly nodded. Wait here. He disappeared into the building. 5 minutes later, a different figure appeared in the doorway. Ethan. Madeline's breath caught. He looked different. Not in appearance. His hair was the same tousled dark brown, his build still lean and tall. But there was something in his expression. Or rather, something missing. Emotion. He walked toward her with slow, measured steps, and when he stopped in front of her, he didn't say her name. Didn't ask why she was there. He simply said, "Why are you here?" Madeline stared at him. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. "I came to see you," she said quietly. "To apologize. To explain." Ethan didn't flinch. "I don't want to hear it." Ethan, no, his voice was firmer this time. My decision hasn't changed. We're done. Madeline's throat tightened. You don't even want to know why. It doesn't matter anymore. She stepped forward, reaching out instinctively. Please. Just give me 5 minutes. He stepped back, her hand dropped. She looked around at the lab behind him, the long rows of windows, the quiet hum of science and focus. A world she no longer belonged to. Ethan, she whispered. I was wrong. He looked at her, stone-faced. I know. I terminated the pregnancy, she blurted. That made him blink. Finally, a crack. I found out you were the one who saved me 6 years ago. Not Liam. It was you. And I didn't remember. I didn't know. And then her voice broke. I realized I spent the last 10 years worshipping the wrong person. Still, Ethan said nothing. I thought I was doing the right thing. I told myself it was for honor, for gratitude, for Liam's dying wish. But it wasn't. It was me running away from my own heart. She took a breath. I didn't even realize it until you left, Ethan. But I love you. The words hung between them in the warm California air for a long, long time. Ethan just looked at her and then he said quietly, You're too late. Madeline froze. I waited for you for 20 years, he said. I followed you around like a shadow, begged for scraps of affection, convinced myself that someday, maybe, you'd choose me back. But now I realize, that was never love. That was me being a fool. I don't want to be that man anymore. She swallowed, blinking fast. But I've changed. I want to start over. Ethan gave a soft, almost pitying smile. You think love is a reset button? He turned toward the building. I have an experiment to run in the morning. Please don't come here again. Ethan, he paused without turning around. He said one last thing. Be well, Madeline. Then he walked inside and the door closed behind him, and just like that, he was gone again. Madeline stood frozen in place, the silence pressing in around her. She had traveled across the country, fought through truth, pain, and guilt, but some things, once shattered, can't be rebuilt, and some people, once walked away, never look back. She stood there for a while, staring at the door. Then she turned, slowly, and walked away. At the lab in Silicon Valley, 2 hours after takeoff, I finally arrived in Silicon Valley. Before the flight, Natalie had messaged me, saying the professor was worried I might not be able to find the new facility, so someone would be there to pick me up. There were lots of people waiting at arrivals. I scanned the crowd several times but didn't see anyone holding a sign with my name. I was just about to call her when I heard a cheerful voice behind me. Ethan. I turned around and saw a girl with a bright smile walking toward me. Sorry, you are? I asked, squinting. The girl feigned a pout and gave me a playful glare, but her voice was filled with joy. Seriously? It's only been 5 years and you've already forgotten your favorite junior. I should report you to Professor Holloway. And just like that, the memory clicked into place. The shy girl from 5 years ago, red-eyed and struggling with her first set of lab results, overlapped with the woman in front of me. Emily Morgan, I said in surprise. Back then, I had been finishing my graduate program while she had just joined the lab. I was busy with my own research and didn't interact with her much. The only memory I had was of her crying silently at her workstation because she couldn't figure out what was wrong with her experiment. I'd happened to walk by and asked if she needed help. One step at a time, I reviewed her process with her until we finally found the issue. Now, 5 years later, she had grown into a confident and striking young woman. No wonder I didn't recognize her at first. Emily grinned as she walked over and grabbed my arm naturally. Well, at least you remember me now. I thought I'd been totally erased from your brain. I rubbed the back of my neck awkwardly. After years of being with Madeline, cold, distant Madeline, I found myself at a loss for how to respond to Emily's bright energy, but she didn't seem to mind. She tugged my sleeve gently. Come on, Professor Holloway's been waiting for you forever. Let's not keep him waiting. We drove through the campus and arrived at the facility. Standing outside the professor's office, I hesitated. Back then, he had pleaded with me to stay on as a postdoc. But I'd turned him down, for Madeline. I'd chosen to become a lecturer in Austin instead. He'd called me again when the Silicon Valley lab was opening. Tried to convince me to join. But at the time, Madeline and I had already been together for years, and I couldn't bring myself to leave her. That rejection hadn't gone over well. Even this time, it wasn't the professor himself who called me, but Natalie that I was still wondering if he was upset with me when Emily suddenly raised her voice. Professor, Ethan's here. Startled, I instinctively reached over to cover her mouth. Her soft lips brushed against my palm. We both froze. I pulled my hand back like I'd been burned. Emily looked away quickly, her cheeks turning pink. Before either of us could say anything, a deep voice called from inside the office, "Well, don't just stand there. Come in." I straightened my posture, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. The professor was seated behind his desk, hair grayer than I remembered. A wave of guilt hit me. "I'm sorry," I said. He waved a hand. "Save it. You're here now. That's what matters. You'd better be ready to work. No more running off." I nodded solemnly. "I'm ready." He looked at me for a long moment, then finally gave a satisfied nod and turned back to his computer. "Go settle in. Natalie will give you your project brief tomorrow." I stepped out, and Emily was waiting in the hall. She led me to the dorm building and showed me my room. I dropped my backpack on the bed with a heavy sigh and lay down, letting the exhaustion from the past 24 hours finally hit me. Before long, I drifted into a deep sleep. Phone call from Madeline. I was woken by the shrill ring of my phone. Still groggy, I picked it up and hit answer without checking the caller ID. "Ethan Carter, where the hell are you?" Madeline's voice exploded in my ear. I sat up, instantly wide awake. I glanced at the time. Only a short nap had passed. The fatigue, the pressure, the emotional toll all boiled over into irritation. "I wrote it on the calendar," I said flatly. "We're done." "You don't get to decide that," she snapped. "At least give me a reason. You left me on our wedding day, Ethan. You owe me that." Her voice cracked near the end, that familiar thread of vulnerability slipping in. I rubbed my eyes. "You're pregnant with another man's child," I said. "You think I can pretend like that never happened? You think I'd still marry you?" I explained it wasn't like that. "You don't love me, Madeline." Silence on the other end. Eventually, she whispered, "So you're leaving me because of the baby?" I didn't respond because it wasn't just the baby. That was just the spark. The fire had been smoldering for years. Her silence, her coldness, her indifference, the way she only smiled for Liam, the way I'd become a placeholder in her life. She was never going to love me. "This was just the final proof. We're done," I repeated. "Let's end this with some dignity." I ended the call. Then I blocked her number. When I opened my messaging app, I saw she had sent dozens of texts. Most of them asking about wedding prep, then slowly spiraling into panic and demands for answers. I blocked her there too. Then I rolled over and pulled the blanket over my head. Sleep took me quickly. Later that week, inside the lab, I adjusted my lab coat and flipped through the project notes on my desk. Emily had been assigned to assist me. On paper, she was supposed to be shadowing for experience. In reality, she did more than half the work. "I think your calculations on the voltage threshold are off," she said, glancing at my screen from across the lab bench. I looked up. "What?" She pointed at the formula. "Right here. You're using the wrong baseline resistance. This system's default is 2.2, not 1.8. She was right. I stared at her in surprise. "Since when did you get so sharp?" Emily gave a smug little smile. "I've been studying under Natalie for 3 years. You think I'd still be the girl crying over a failed PCR cycle?" I chuckled. "Fair enough." A comfortable silence settled between us as we continued to work. Outside the tall lab windows, dusk was painting the hills in soft gold. Eventually, Emily spoke again, softer this time. "Hey, Ethan?" "Yeah." She hesitated, eyes fixed on her notebook. "Back then, you helped me when no one else did. You probably don't remember, but I cried for 3 days straight after I failed that experiment. I almost dropped out of the program." I paused what I was doing and looked at her. "But you sat with me. Reviewed everything. Didn't even mock me for messing up. I never forgot that." I didn't know what to say. She glanced at me, her voice teasing but warm. "You're a lot colder now though. Not the sweet guy I remember." I smiled faintly. "I guess people change. Or get hurt," she added quietly. I didn't deny it. The silence returned, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt settled. After our shift, we walked side by side through the quiet hallway toward the dorm wing. As we approached my room, Emily stopped and leaned against the wall. "You know," she said, "I used to wonder what happened to you. Everyone said you were married. Then the rumors stopped. I unlocked my door. We didn't get married." She looked surprised but didn't press. I stepped inside, dropped my bag, and turned back to her. You want coffee? I asked. Emily blinked. Now? I shrugged. I've got that imported dark roast you used to like. Her lips curled into a smile. Still remember that? I nodded. She stepped into the room. I started brewing the coffee as she sat down, looking around at the minimalist setup. After a moment, she noticed something taped to the wall above my desk, a red-circled date, crossed out in thick black ink. Underneath it, in my handwriting, were the words, "We're done, Madeline." Emily didn't comment. She just turned to me and said softly, "You're starting over." I handed her a mug. Yeah, I said. I am. We clinked mugs gently. For the first time in years, the air around me didn't feel heavy. No guilt. No waiting. No pretending. Just the soft clatter of ceramic, the smell of coffee, and someone willing to sit with me without asking for anything else. 2 years later, downtown Austin, Texas. It had been 2 years. 2 years since I walked out of the church that never held a wedding. 2 years since I left behind the version of myself who spent every moment waiting for someone who would never truly choose me. And today, by complete chance, the past walked right back into view. I was in Austin for a medical tech expo, presenting a paper on neural interface biofeedback systems. After the session, I stepped out into the crisp fall air, planning to grab a coffee from the cafe across the street. The light turned green. I stepped into the crosswalk, and then I saw her standing on the other side of the street. Madeline. She looked older. Not aged, but different. Her hair was pulled into a neater bun than she used to wear. Her posture was straighter, her expression calm, but her eyes, when they locked onto mine, widened with unmistakable shock. I stopped mid-step. So did she. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Cars passed behind me. Pedestrians walked between us, breaking the visual stillness. And then I took one final step and crossed the street. We stood there, face to face. She was the first to speak. Her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan. Hey, I said simply. She stared at me for a second too long, like confirming I was real. You've changed, she finally said. So have you. She gave a soft, almost bitter smile. I heard about your research. You're kind of a big deal now, huh? I shrugged. Still doing what I love. There was silence again. This time, it felt clean. Not heavy like before. Just quiet. I came back to Austin a few months ago, she said, eyes glancing toward the buildings around us. Got a job at the Children's Hospital. Pediatrics. That's good, I said, and meant it. I thought about calling you. She admitted. I didn't ask why she didn't. She looked up at me, searching. Do you ever think about that day? I met her gaze squarely. Yeah. Sometimes. But not the way you think. She bit her lip. I was such an idiot. I didn't reply because forgiveness didn't mean reopening the wound. After a moment, she nodded slightly. You look happy. I smiled. I am. She looked down at her hands. No ring. I checked my watch. I've got a flight back to San Francisco in a few hours. Oh, she said quickly. Of course. I didn't mean to hold you up. You didn't. Another pause. Then she said the one thing I didn't expect. I'm really glad you're doing okay, Ethan. I nodded. You too, Madeline. I gave her one last smile, then turned and walked away. I didn't look back. She didn't call after me. And just like that, the past stayed behind. Final scene. Back in San Francisco. That night, I landed back in San Francisco just after 11 p.m. Emily was waiting at the arrivals gate, holding 2 coffees and wearing that oversized hoodie she always stole from me. She waved when she saw me. I walked toward her, and she gave me a tired grin. Flight okay? Yeah, I said. Saw someone from the past. Her expression shifted just a little. You okay? Better than I thought I'd be. I reached out, took the coffee from her hand, and gently laced my fingers with hers. Let's go home. She smiled, and we walked out into the California night together. The end.